Greetings, my fellow crafters and creatives. Welcome to episode 49 of Bobolog. My name is Bobbie Olan and this is my vlog where I share all of my knitting and crafty endeavors with you. Let's see, what else do I have to say at the start? All links for anything that I discuss will be in the YouTube description at the bottom of this video. You can also find me on Ravelry and Instagram and Discord as Bobbie Olan in some form or another. I think on Ravelry it's just Bobbie Olan and on Instagram it's bobbie.olan. Anyway, if you search it, you should be able to find me. Yeah, so as long as you spell it right, then that's me, B-O-B-B-I-E. My first name is actually my dad's nickname, and my second name, is my mum's nickname. And sometimes I think like relatives back in the Philippines, they see my Facebook profile. I don't really use Facebook, but I just never got around to deleting my profile. They see my Facebook profile and they think that I'm like a joint account for my parents, and they reach out to me and I always have to say, oh no, I'm their daughter, and I tell my parents. Anyway, I don't know why that occurred to me just now, but that's, they don't have a joint account for anything. So if you search Bobbie Olan, you're going to find me, not them. And that was just a bit of a segue into nothing. So what have I been up to in the past fortnight? I've been watching like a few vlogs lately where the knitters that I'm watching, like they share a lot more of like what's going on in their lives, and they always seem to have these stories of things that they've done or that have happened to them. And I feel like I just don't have that. I feel like I don't know if I'm just not paying attention or if it's a thing with me where I just don't see like, you know, the value or the meaning, or I don't know, like I feel like do I see my own life as being so like mundane? Well, it's not mundane, but it's like I just do the same things, so I don't think it's worth sharing because I'm the one living it. But I don't know, maybe you guys would be interested in some of the things that to me are just like ordinary, but then it's hard to think of what those things could be that I could share with you. Gosh, that's just going round and round in circles. I basically I want to try to make more of an effort to sort of remember and appreciate the things that I do throughout my life, so that I can share them with you if you're interested in knowing what goes on with me. Let's see, the other day I went for a walk along the beach, and most of the time when I do a walk, I'm walking with my partner, but he was busy doing other things, so I went for a walk on my own. And for the first time since we've been living down here, I ventured out onto the beach that we are. It has this big sort of like rocky area that sort of sticks out into the sea a little bit, just like a big outcrop thing. So I ventured out there for the first time, and it was just nice seeing all of the little rock pools and rock streams. And I tried to avoid the various groups of birds that were on there. It's quite a wide outcrop, so I was able to avoid them pretty easily. I just basically didn't want to disturb them and their habitat and what they were doing, so I steered clear. And I got to the end and just watched like the waves crashing onto the rocks and listened to the sound of the ocean, and that was really lovely. And yeah, so I guess that's an example of something that I did. But I guess, I don't know, I go for a walk. I try to go for a walk every day. I don't always stick to that, but it's a really beautiful area where we are. There's it's a very green area, so it always feels like you're pretty well immersed in the environment. So we're either walking through bush or like walking along the beach, really, and it's always lovely because I'm seeing essentially the same things every day, I don't really know that it's worth sharing with you. But that was one lovely walk that I did. What else can I share? Oh, I wanted to say this at the start of this video. I am actually thinking of starting a craft along, if any of you are interested in doing one with me. The thing that has prompted this is I have talked many times about how I want to knit the optic blanket, which is a free pattern by Purl Soho, and I have the yarn for it. I bought the yarn from Purl Soho when it was being discontinued. I dyed it years ago because by the time I found out that it was being discontinued, I couldn't get the black color that I wanted, so I bought all of the white. I bought all of the yarn that I need for the blanket in the cream or undyed color, and then I dyed the quantity that I needed to be black. And that was years ago, and I keep talking about doing it. And last year, Maddie of the Mad About You podcast did a bougie blanket knit along for the whole year, and I thought, oh, that's going to be my opportunity to knit on that blanket, and I didn't do it. Instead, I spent the whole year working on this schlanket, which is the growth ring shawl, which was such an epic project, but I really do want to do the optic blanket, and I would really like to get it finished by the end of this year. And then on Instagram recently, someone called Loz Mins, Loz, I don't know if you're still watching my videos, but if you are, hello. And Loz contacted me to say that she's interested in knitting the optic blanket as well, and to let them know when I was actually planning on starting one, because then maybe we could knit together. So I thought, well, I've been wanting to do a knit along or a craft along with you guys for the longest time now, but I always just think there are so many knit alongs out there that sometimes I feel like I just don't have time to run my own. So, but then, yeah, Loz contacted me saying that, and I thought, well, this is an opportunity for me to actually start one. Big rant just to say I want to start a knit along. I am planning to run it from July to the end of the year, so for the last 6 months of 2026, and I'm actually going to call it the Garter and Granny's knit along, craft along. Garter and Granny, because you can either participate with something that is garter stitch or something that is granny stitch. So I didn't want to exclude any crocheters who may be watching and may want to join along in a project with me. I haven't really thought about it too much further beyond that. I don't think I necessarily want to place any restrictions on, oh, you have to knit a blanket, or you have to knit something that's like bigger than a pair of socks. I don't know. But basically at the moment, I'm just thinking if it's maybe I'll say like at least 50% of it has to be garter stitch or granny stitch. And yeah, I don't know, we'll see. I don't even know if anyone will actually even join along with me. But the reason that I have picked those two types of stitches is because they're both really simple, like basic sort of, I feel like they're equivalent to each other in a way in terms of how simple and beginner friendly they are, but then they also just lend themselves to like so many different applications and beautiful designs. So I thought it would be a good one to do. And also there are another couple of blankets or schlankets maybe that I have been wanting to do for a while that involve granny stitch. So if I don't or if I finish the optic blanket, or if I just want to if I want to start a crochet project, then I can maybe start one of those and work along with you guys as well, if any of you are interested in doing that. If you are, please let me know in the comments down below if you're interested in joining along, and also if you would like there to be some kind of forum where we can chat to each other and share our progress and get to know each other a little bit more that way. I am thinking that probably the easiest place to do that is Ravelry. I don't currently have a Ravelry group, but I could set one up where we could you know, chat all of this stuff, say hello to each other. Or the other option that I have thought of is a Discord group. My main hesitation about these is I feel like, again, there are so many different like discussion boards and forums and groups that everyone or most people, I imagine, would be a part of. And I find it really hard to keep up with them myself, so I was never really sure about starting something of my own. But if you are interested in having that, if you're interested in joining me for this craft along and having that place where we can come together and communicate and share, then I would love to do that. And yeah, so let me know in the comments down below if you would like to join, if you are happy to just get a hashtag to use on Instagram, or if you would like there to be some kind of group for discussing things. Anyway, I think that was all of the preamble that I had to share. Let's get into the first proper segment, which is handy dandy FOs. So FOs, finished objects. Oh, I'm wearing it. I was looking here next to me for the finished objects, and there's none beside me because I'm actually wearing it. This is the One Love Shawl by Locatelli, which was a Once Again mystery knit along last year, and which is the front. I know I always need to look. This is the front. So that's it there. And I don't love it, I have to say, but I think that the reasons that I don't love it are all to do with my own choices that I don't think were necessarily the best choices. I will explain and go into that in more detail, but I wanted to show you a close-up. Hopefully that's in frame. This week I've actually flipped my phone around, so I'm filming with the back camera because I realized that if I can see myself on the screen, then I'm not looking at the camera, which means I'm not looking at you. I'm always looking off to the side. But now, because I can't see a screen, I can't see what's in the frame and what's in focus. So hopefully you can see that there. So if you're familiar with the pattern, how do I do this? So these bits of lace here are from the pattern, and then this bit at the bottom here, that was something that I substituted in at the end. So let's see, I did 1, 2, 3. I have 3 sections of lace. So each clue was like a garter and a lace, garter and a lace, garter and a lace. So I must have just completely omitted the 4th clue and done my own thing entirely for the 4th clue. And I like this stitch on its own. And I picked it because, so basically, how do I explain this without giving too much of the pattern away, because it is a paid for pattern. Basically, for the One Love lace stitch, the sequence of the eyelets matched the sequence of the eyelets in this knitting pattern that in this stitch that I substituted at the bottom. So it had the same number of eyelets with the same number of sort of spacing in between them. So I thought that that could work. I did modify it slightly just so that the wave of the stitch would match the sort of wave that was naturally occurring in the One Love Shawl, just with the way that the decreases. I mean, do you call them? Yeah, I guess you still call them an increase. An eyelet makes an increase, and then you have to decrease that stitch out, so you end up with the same number of stitches. Anyway, you can kind of see that it creates like a wave. So this stitch that I substituted in had a wave, but it had the knit togethers and the slip slip knits in the opposite places than what the One Love lace stitch did. So I kind of just swapped the SSKs for knit two togethers, and the knit two togethers for SSKs. I feel like I'm explaining that really badly, but I hope it makes sense. Basically, I was trying to get to keep the wave the same. So, oh, I should say as well that this stitch that I substituted in is from the, I've got my notes down here, so I'm just double checking. It is stitch 62 from the Japanese Knitting Stitch Bible by Hitomi Shida. So, yes, so I like this stitch, but I'm not sure it was actually at the end of the day the best match for this. I picked it because of, again, like the sequence of eyelets that I said, but also because it includes, it incorporates garter stitch. So I thought that it would be a good match, and I think it's okay. But I do also wonder, or I think that because this yarn, which is beautiful yarn, it's like lovely and soft, it was like a dream to work with. I absolutely love the colors. They are totally my colors, and it's an Ashen Eve Posh sock yarn in the mostly harmless colorway that was commissioned by 1121 Windmills for a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy special limited edition thing that she had going on. Anyway, I do think that maybe because the yarn is so variegated that like it's too busy for you to really see the eyelets. I feel like, and I should have known this before I went into it, but I think that lace, in my opinion, lace looks the best when you're using a more solid color or just like a single color, because that allows you to really see the lace portions a lot more clearly, at least in my opinion. So I think that maybe my color choice was a little bit busy for that. That was one thing that I think I could have made a better choice in doing. The other thing is that when I originally cast this on, I cast it on in 3.5 mil needles because that is what the yarn recommended, and I hadn't paid attention to the pattern. And then I realized that the pattern said to use 4.5 millimeter needles, so that is what I knit this in. But I know that I'm a tight knitter, so I'm actually now wishing I had it gone up to 5 or even 5.5 millimeters. Although, I don't know, maybe it's an okay size. I don't think you can see the whole thing there, but it's just ever so slightly longer than my wingspan. So I don't know if I mean, it drapes really nice, so maybe that's not actually an issue, but I was wondering if I could get sort of like a bigger size, or if the eyelets would be more obvious if I was using a slightly larger needle size. So that is the second thing that I kind of feel like I should have done differently. The third thing, what was this? So the first thing was the yarn, the second thing was the needles. Oh, I guess the third thing would have been, I kind of wish I had just stuck to the pattern instead of subbing in this this other stitch. And then the fourth thing is that the bind off that I did. So I keep talking about how the stitch pattern does this wavy thing, but you can barely see any wave in the edge there. Why is that? That is because of my fourth mistake, which is that I did a different bind off than what the pattern called for. I had seen on Instagram something called the, looking at my notes, knotted knit together bind off, which I had seen someone called Zanetti Knits do, and it does like, let me see if I can show you. I don't think you can really tell, but it does like the tiniest little hint of like a picot edge. And I thought it looked really nice, and it does, it looks really nice, but I just assumed that it would be stretchy, and I didn't test it. I didn't check it after I did it. I just did the bind off, cut the yarn, and it wasn't until I blocked it and was spreading it out on the mat that I realized, oh, it's not really stretchy enough. I could just stretch it out into like the crescent shape. And if I tried to make any of the waves to like pull it into the wave shape, then it would just like start folding over, because there wasn't any extra give in this to allow for me to create those waves, sadly. So I think I picked the wrong bind off to do, which feels like a very silly mistake to have made, to have just sort of gone for it and not tested it out. If you look at this little bit of stockinette at the end, you can see that it has a little bit of stretch to it, but really like not enough to give the shape that I wanted. The one thing about it that I don't love, which I feel isn't entirely my fault, is this whole issue of doing a garter tab cast on. See how it creates this like bumpy thing in the middle? So that's a problem that I'd heard people talk about, and I'd never done one myself. This is the first shawl I've done that uses a garter tab cast on, not bind off, a garter tab cast on. So I thought I would just give it a go and go for it. But I really don't love like the bump that makes. So if I knit this again, or if I ever do another shawl that needs that, I might do a little bit of research into what can be done to get a flatter edge. But like I enjoyed knitting this while I was knitting it. Like I said, I think the yarn and the colors are beautiful. I just think that I made a series of not the best choices. And I also wasn't sure, actually, from what I could tell in Hohi's photo, this garter stitch edge that I'm holding at the top, that should have been the flat bit, and the lace edge of it formed the crescent. But I saw some people pin it so that the lace was the flat bit and the garter stitch edging formed the crescent. And I think that actually kind of made sense for this garter tab. So maybe that could have been a way to what am I trying to say? A way to like make this bump at the top a little bit less annoying would have been to like block it like that instead of like that. But I don't know. I feel like I sort of tried to make that shape, and this garter edge wouldn't exactly like stretch to give that the best, like it, like I had to stretch it as far as like it would go to get the shape. And I thought it wasn't right, but actually looking at it now, I'm kind of thinking maybe I should reblock it. Anyway, I'll think about that. I don't know if I can be bothered to reblock it, at least while I'm living in this rental. I explained in my episode last week, but if you didn't watch last week, then you may not know, but we're currently in a sort of temporary rental until the end of the year, and I have packed most of my things away that I was thinking that I wouldn't need while we were here. For some reason, I included my blocking pins in that. I left my blocking mats accessible, but I don't know where my blocking pins are. So when I blocked this, I sort of just laid it out and stretched it as much as I could, but I wasn't able to pin it down. And so it's probably not worth reblocking until I have found my pins again and I can actually pin it down. I think this does look lovely on. I feel like I don't really know how to wear it other than just wrapping it around my neck as I just did, but it feels beautiful on. I think it looks nice. So at the end of the day, I am happy with it. I just wish I had done a few things differently. Okay, was that all that I wanted to say about it? I believe so. I thought I'd break up showing you the things that I have made with inserting other sections in between. So I'm going to jump into an eye candy, which is my segment for sharing patterns that I have my eye on. Anyway, I thought I would just like pick things in my queue, and since I have just talked about a shawl, I picked a shawl on my queue that has been in my queue since my Ravelry queue, I should say. It's been in my queue since October 2021. It is called the Aeolian Shawl it's by Elizabeth Freeman. It's a free pattern on Knitty, and it, as of yesterday when I looked, it had 4,842 projects. It is a beautiful lace shawl that incorporates beading. If you want to include the beading, you don't have to do the beading, but it has, I think it's got 2 or 3 different sizes. There were 3 samples in the pattern, but now that I think about it, maybe it was just 2 sizes, and the third one was just using like a different weight of yarn or something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, it's one of those shawls that I fell in love with as soon as I saw it. The main thing that held me back for the first few years of having it in my queue is that I could never settle on the yarn that I wanted to use for it. I'm pretty sure I have yarn in my stash now that I would be happy to use to make the Aeolian shawl, but again, like I bought some beads when I was on holiday in Japan recently, but I put those away when we got back home, and I haven't had a chance to sort of see how well the beads work with the yarn that I have. And also it's just sadly like not a priority for me to be knitting. Yeah, but one day I really hope to actually go ahead and make the Aeolian shawl. So yeah, that is my eye candy for episode 49. Next up, we will jump into handy dandy whips. I'm just realizing I wanted to include a UFO in this segment as well, but maybe I will just wait for the next episode. Do I go get it? I can't be bothered. Sorry to tease you like that. Basically, last year I knit a Cosy Hubby sweater for my partner. When I finished it, he didn't completely love how the neck was sitting. And I'd also realized that I knew when I was knitting it that I knit it at the wrong gauge. While this is a good fabric, I had actually intended to try to get gauge with the finished garment. But it wasn't until I had done the neck that I realized like what a bad decision that was, because the neck was double knit. And because I knit it tighter than the pattern called for, it sort of stood up more and was a bit stiffer. But also it had a drawstring, and my partner didn't love that they sort of sat asymmetrically. So I ripped that out and I started re-knitting it, and I'm nearly done with it. It has been nearly done for a few months now. The thing is that I wanted to insert eyelets where the drawstring comes out, and I need to insert those before, because it's double knit, so it's like that's the front, that's the back, you're knitting them at the same time. So before I close that up, I need to be able to get the eyelet in the front bit with the back part out of the way, so I'm not hammering into that, and then I can close it up. But I didn't know where our toolbox was, and apparently it has been hiding in plain sight. And I swear I looked over there it's over there. I swear I looked and I swear it wasn't there before, but there it is. And so maybe it will actually be an FO next time. We shall see. But anyway, UFO, nothing to show you. Sorry, I wasn't prepared. The first work in progress that I wanted to share is this one here. This is the Plover by Jacqueline C. Slack. I am following the pattern from the Making Magazine Simple Edition, but it is actually available as an individual pattern on Ravelry and on the Jaq Studio website, I believe. I forgot to mention that last time. But this is where I have gotten up to with it. So it is a raglan cardigan, top down. So I am still doing some of the raglan shaping before separating for the sleeves. And all of those markers there are just sort of marking out where all of the raglan shaping is. I should be a lot further along with it, but let me show you what I did. So what I held up and showed you just then is not actually the same little bit that I held up and showed you last time. That was this version. And I'd gotten a little bit further with this version than I am in the thing that I'm currently working on. And I decided to block it just to make sure of my gauge. It's a bit wavy at the bottom because I realized that I wanted to like apply a little bit of gravity when I blocked it. So I blocked it, I laid it out flat, and then when it was dry, I hung it up on the clothesline, and I just misted it with like a spray bottle filled with water. It's just so that it wasn't soaked, but just so it had a little bit more weight to it because well, basically just to try to mimic like a full garment, like the weight of a full garment. So when I had done the swatch for this, I was getting, I wrote this down, I was getting, what was I getting? I got 16 stitches and 38 rows. The pattern gauge calls for 16 stitches and 30 rows. And so even though I had blocked my swatch, I was getting 38 rows, but after I gravity blocked this, I was getting 30 rows. However, the stitch count changed ever so slightly. I was now getting 15.5 stitches, and I'm knitting the smallest size of this because it is a gift for someone. It's not for myself, and they are quite small. And I was even thinking that even the smaller size, I ideally would have had a little bit less positive ease than that would have given. So I didn't love that this was going to be even like a little bit bigger than what the smaller size was calling for. So I did another set of swatches. I realized, so with my first my first set of swatches, which is this mess here, I had knit all of these on my preferred needles, which are the 4 square needles. So they're wooden square needles, knitting needles, obviously. And that, let's see, on 6.5 mil, which is what I had knit this version on, I got the gauge that I told you I was getting, and on 6 mil I was getting 17 stitches, and it was still like 38 rows. So after this happened, I decided to re-block the 6mm swatch and apply a little bit of gravity to that one, and that gave me 18 stitches and 34 rows. So I did the math and I realized that it was it was just going to be too small. It's meant to be like an oversized cardigan, and while I didn't want it to be quite as oversized as the pattern was calling for, I still wanted it to be oversized and at 18 stitches in 10 centimeters instead of 16 centimeters, instead of 16 stitches in 10 centimeters. I just wasn't going to get anywhere near the amount of ease I felt like I should aim for. If I had gotten 17 stitches, that would have been perfect, but that just wasn't gonna work for me. And there isn't a 6.25 millimeter needle size, or at least I'm not aware of one. And then I remembered that I still have some metal needles. So I dug those out and I did another couple of swatches here, and I did gravity block these as well. So this one here is on 6 millimeter Addi metal needles, and then this one here is on 5 millimeter Addi metal needles, and they are like the biggest sizes, the only big sizes of those metal knitting needles that I have. So I was limited to those options. I didn't really want to go out and buy new metal needles because I rarely, if ever, use needles this size, so I didn't think it was worth it for me to invest in some more. Anyway, this one here, the 6 millimeter metal needles, gravity blocked, was giving me, it got me gauge, exactly, 16 stitches and 30 rows. So while like there's really barely any difference in these two, just half a stitch in 10 centimeters, I did think it was worth it to start over again and use the metal needles and get gauge. So let me shove all of this back into this bag to keep it all out of the way so that it is not messy and tangling with my yarn. Did I mention that I am knitting this with Alpaca Yarns Sporti, which is a sport weight yarn? The pattern calls for a fingering weight yarn, and I already don't love like how loose this is using sport weight. So I feel like I don't know. I may have even been happier to find a DK weight yarn to knit this in. But I'm just glad I didn't go for fingering in the end. I don't love like really loose knitting. I get what they're going for with, you know, knitting fingering weight at this loose a stitch. It's just not something that I really love. So yes, sport weight yarn, happy enough with it. And I just need to keep plugging away. While I have this out, I want to remember to put on a progress marker so that in 2 weeks when I come back to you, I can show you how far I have come. So this progress marker and all of the stitch markers that I have on this project are ones that I got from Lisa of 1121 Windmills, mainly through Advents. All of the ones that I'm using on this particular project were from Advents. So there you go, a little progress marker to mark that. And pretty sure that's all I had to say about the Plover. The only other project that I have as a current work in progress is a ribbed Toque 120, which is a beanie that I am knitting in Schoppel-Wolle Zauberball Crazy in the colorway Haufsteher. I have no idea how to say that, I'm sorry. But I did look up the translation of it, and it is either early bird or early riser. And it is beautiful colors there. I love how this one is knitting up. And I have done just about 50 rows of it, so I think I have another 40 to 50 to do before I start working the decreases on that one. For this one, I'm going to do the decreases as per the pattern with very slight modifications, which will be the same modifications that I discussed in my previous episode, but I won't go into that again until I actually get to that point and I can share it with you then. For now, I just wanted to share how absolutely beautifully this yarn is knitting up. That's really all I had to say about that one. And yeah, that's it for Handy Dandy. The next segment that I sort of had on my list is eyes and ears. I wanted to explain a little bit about my vlog watching habits because I am ridiculously behind just because of the way I watch vlogs. So what I used to do is of all the vlogs that I'm watching, I would get up to date with all of them, and then I would pick a new vlogger and I would go back to the very beginning of their channel and watch everything that they have until I got up to date, and then I would go back to watching everyone that I watch and getting up to date, and repeat that cycle over and over again. Late last year, I think at some point, I decided that I didn't really love that way of doing it anymore, and instead I lined up a whole lot of different vloggers that I wanted to start watching, and I put like years worth of their videos into my watch list. Let's see, some of them started like over 10 years ago, so I haven't put everything on. I would just put a few years at a time, and then that way when I'm watching them, they're all sort of like in sync with each other, even though that they're not in sync with reality, if that makes sense. And then so I'm watching them in chronological order all at once, so I'm still like 10 years back in the past, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to get up to date. I actually, I got up to the point where I was like up to 5 or 6 years ago, and I think 6 years ago, and then I decided, I'll just add these like other 2 people to watch, and they started over 10 years ago, so I'm watching those 2 in tandem until they get to the same point of time as all of the others that I'd gotten to 6 years ago with. And of course, like the closer I get to the current time, the more people end up on that list, because some people only started vlogging 7 years ago, some 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. So as I get closer to real time, more people like join my watch list. At the moment, that watch list has over 2,000 videos on it, and I've only probably added videos up to like 5 years ago or 4 years ago. So that is going to take me some time to get through. So I'm very out of date with everyone. I'll start like sharing with you who they are that I am watching. I'll probably just like discuss one vlogger per episode until I've sort of like mentioned everyone that I'm watching. But this eyes and ears, I just sort of wanted to mention a movie that I watched in the cinema. Actually, I watched Sheep Detectives in within the first few days of it coming out. And if you're not aware of what that film is, it is about a farmer who dies. The farmer is played by Hugh Jackman, who dies, and the local police force aren't treating it as a suspicious death, or he's just not a very good detective. And so the sheep that the farmer was a shepherd of, I guess he was a shepherd, not a farmer. The sheep decide to solve the mystery themselves and help the detective sort of solve the murder case. it's really adorable. Oh, I should say, yeah, so they decide that they can take that on because the shepherd used to read them mystery books at night before they all went to bed, so they feel like they know how to solve a murder case. It's really cute. It totally gave me like Babe vibes. And I have to say, I'm so bad at like recognizing voices. And so a lot of the sheep, I was like, oh, I know who that is. I know who that is. But I couldn't actually figure out who any of them were. And I had to look up after the movie who did all of the voices. But there are quite a few names in there. And it was a really good movie. I actually went into it thinking that it was maybe more of an adult movie. I look back now and I think, how could I have thought that? It's got like talking animals and this very silly sort of like plot. But I think in my head, because it was about, it was a murder mystery, I was like, oh, this has got to be for adults. It's not for kids. But it's definitely a kid's movie, a kid-friendly movie. Yeah. And there were a lot of kids when we were in the cinema watching it. And one of my friends went to see it with their kids. So obviously she knew. But another one of my friends was like, oh, I don't know if I will take my kids to see it because they might still find it scary. So I feel a little bit justified in thinking that it's not necessarily the most kid-friendly topic. But if you haven't seen it, I recommend it because it is very cute. There are references to knitting and yarn, but it's never actually really like shown or discussed because that's not what the movie is about. Yeah, that is it for eyes and ears. So the second to last segment that I have to share with you is MULTICRAFTY. Last episode, I believe I mentioned that I have been participating in K3N Cloth Tales year-long stitch along this year, which is the A to Z of stitching. So how Catherine of K3N has been doing this is in 1 week, she picks something to stitch beginning with a letter, and then her viewers comment on that video on what they would like the following week to be, which will also start with that same letter. So there are 2 things for A, 2 things for B. So week 1 is A, week 2 is A from the community. Then it's B from K3 and B from the community. And I had been pretty good at keeping up with that and following along every week until we went on holiday to Japan. And I knew that I wasn't going to do any stitching while we were on holiday. And I have been playing catch up with that. I haven't done any for like the past month, just because I'd signed up to Domestika, and I was just doing a 1 month free trial. So whenever I had the time to do stitching instead, I went and watched the courses that I was interested in on Domestika. But last night, I finally got back into it and I am up to G2, and she did this beautiful embroidery of like a fence with a little gate and like grasses and flowers growing around it. So the theme was garden, and usually, well, up until that point, it's mainly been like different stitches and techniques. There was one of the F's, which was feather, that was also like quite a like purely decorative, like embroidering an image type thing. And I didn't fully do that one. I kind of just did the outline and I didn't fill it in because I'm finding that I don't really have the patience for like the more sort of like, I'd call it like the more artistic, creative side of embroidery. I like having a more sort of structured approach. So when she did the garden, I actually watched the episode last week, and for the last week I've just been thinking, oh, how can I how can I like make this simpler for myself? Like I don't have the confidence and possibly not the patience to like create something that to me was like super intricate and difficult. And then I decided that I would just go for something completely different. And she encourages that in all of her videos. She's like, if you don't like what I have chosen, go and choose your own thing to stitch with that begins with the letter. So in trying to keep with the garden theme, I have decided to do, let's see if you can pick what it is. Hopefully you can. It's not finished, but that is where I have gotten up to. Can you tell what it is? I really hope that you can. It is growth rings. So I have tried to stitch a representation of like the cut face of a tree. I found, I'm trying to use like all scrap fabrics for this. So this background cloth is from an old pair of pants of mine that I have been cutting up and using for this project. And then the fabric in the center is like a scrap of like a quilting cotton, I believe it is. What was it? It was like a really subtle print of like roses and leaves in like a tan color on like a really pale beigey background. So it's really subtle, which I thought was just perfect for this design. And then I've used 3 different colors of brown. So when I looked up images of growth rings, they all seem to have like a little darker bit in the middle and then get paler going out, and then the bark around the outside was the darkest. So I just need to finish filling in the bark. I'm just doing like 1 round of these stitches that you see here, and then I will go back around and around and around again until that is like as filled in as I want it to be. But I'm pretty happy with how that is turning out. I was skeptical in my abilities to do this, but it seems to be working quite well, if I do say so myself. I had traced like a circle onto this fabric, and then when I went to cut it out, I purposely like went wonky. I went in some places and out in some places to try to give it more of a natural shape. But yeah, I'm happy with how that is looking, and next time I should be able to show you that finished thing, and hopefully 1 or 2 more patches from that. I'm guessing that this is going to be like all the multi-crafty that I have to show you for the end of the year will just be stitching on this. Hopefully there will be some spinning as well, but I am still trying to get through the fleece that I bought in like 2021 or something like that. It's just taking me forever to do, and I am determined to finish it before I start spinning any of the other fiber braids that I have, because I feel like if I start spinning other things, I will just never ever ever get this done. So yes, my goal is to finish that spin by the end of the year, but I probably won't show it to you until I have something more complete to actually show you. Last but not least is Heartful of Craft, where I share something that I am grateful for in the last 2 weeks since I last did an episode. Usually I will try to relate it to something crafty, but if not, I will just share something else that I'm grateful for. This time it is something crafty, and basically I am grateful for just the abundance of options that we have as knitters in this current day and age. Specifically, I am talking about knitting needles, and specifically I am talking about these 40 centimeter circulars that I bought to make these beanies that I have been working on. I've made 3 so far this year, and I have plans to make more, and I put it away, but I had been knitting it on like a circular needles, but like really big long ones, probably 100 or 120 centimeter ones that I had bought because I like to knit my socks in magic loop. and I didn't have any in this small a circumference, so I was just sort of dealing with doing like a big giant traveling loop knit, and like it didn't bother me that much having to, like, you know, pull the needle through every single time at the end of each round. But I realized that, well, when I went to like the last knit night at Little Woolly Makes, which is my local yarn store, I just realized that, like, well, why not? Why not buy the appropriate needles? Like, they're available. They are going to make my life so much, like, easier and more efficient and more pleasant. And seriously, like, if you have the ability to get the right size needles for the project that you're working for, it really will just like make everything so much smoother for you. So I'm really grateful that I was able to buy some 40 centimeter circulars in 2.5 millimeter, which is what I'm getting here. I actually also bought some 40 centimeters in other sizes as well, because I seem to be on a bit of a beanie kick. So I'm just really grateful that that is an option that we have in this day and age. And yeah, I'm grateful that I have the means to take advantage of this plethora of tools that are available to us. And that is pretty much all that I have to share. Oh, I did want to say, when I was editing the previous video, I noticed that towards the end of the video, the quality started getting quite grainy. I don't know if that's because my battery is just shocking. My phone is like on its way out, and maybe it was struggling towards the end of that, or if it was because the lighting had changed. The lighting isn't great today, so I hope that you've been able to see everything okay. But yeah, if it goes grainy again at the end of this one here, I may have to figure something out to try to avoid that, because I want to have a good video that is enjoyable and clear for you to watch. Anyway, okay, that is really all that I have to share. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today, whether you are watching this when this comes out, or a week from now, or like way into the future. I really appreciate you being here. If you feel like it, if you liked what I had to share with you, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I would really appreciate that. And do let me know if you are interested in doing the Garter and Granny's craft along. I keep wanting to say knit along. Garter and Granny's craft along with me from July to December, and if you would like me to set up a forum, and whether you would prefer Ravelry or Discord. And I guess I will see you in another fortnight. I hope you find time for lots of crafting and time to spend with your family and friends, and time for yourself in that time. I need to practice that outro more. I feel like I used to say it a lot smoother. Anyway, I will see you in a fortnight. Fare thee well.